Hi, this is my review of the Pathfinder RPG Ultimate Combat. Ultimate Combat, I think the title would have been better. Well, I can think of two titles that fit the book better. The first one is Optional Combat because it has a lot of optional rules. And the second one is Oriental Combat because there are many Asian themed things like character classes and weapons and armor and even feats. Well, let's talk about the quality of the book. The quality is surprisingly good for a Paizo book. This is one of the books that has lasted more than the others. The quality of the paper is good, the ink is good, although with my past experience with other Pathfinder books, I'm a bit afraid that it's going to present some flaws. Now maybe the binding will come loose or something. And as you can see, the cover is great with that same scheme that I was telling you about, that there's a thread coming from this side flowing towards this one. I don't know, I just noticed that pattern. I think it's pretty cool in a quirky sort of way. And the organization is good, however, there is some errata, I think a couple of sheets of errata. Not as much as the Ultimate Magic book, but it's still there. So I highly recommend that you get it either as a PDF or do you get the second printing of the book. Now let's talk about the contents. To be honest, I actually got this book because of the character classes. I really like the character classes that came with it. And there are three of them. The first one is the Gunslinger. You can see the illustration here. And the artwork is pretty good. There are some, I don't know, weird pieces of illustrations here and there, but it's generally good. Now the Gunslinger is a very powerful mid-range, long-range, or even close-range combatant. The thing is that firearms, or at least the rules presented in this book, are really lethal. The closer you are to the enemy, the easier you will hit the enemy, the monster, or an NPC or whatever. And that's the thing that makes the Gunslinger really lethal. It has the class has a lot of flexibility. It works great at long range and the mid range and close range, even more so with the appropriate fits. So you have to be really careful because it may actually outshine the other character classes. And the Gunslinger has grit points that allows the character to perform all these amazing kind of like gun fu or like John Woo films where the character is jumping around and shooting with two guns and performing all those crazy stunts. So for example, you have utility shot. If the Gunslinger has at least one grit point, she can perform all of the following utility shots. You can perform Blast Lock, that you make an attack roll against a lock within the first range increment of her firearm, and you're blowing up a lock. So that's a great way and a great ability to have if you don't have a thief in the party. Or maybe you can stop the bleeding. The Gunslinger makes a firearm attack and then presses the hot barrel against herself or an adjacent creature to staunch a bleeding wound. That's pretty cool. You also have other powers such as dead shots, startling shot, targeting a specific part of the body, even with more accuracy that other rules will allow. Expert loading, lightning reload. You can perform all that when you have a certain number of grit points, and sometimes you need to spend grit points. And now the book presents an optional rule that feels a bit too unbalanced in my opinion. It's the optional rule called Daring Act. And this Daring Act basically means that the Gunslinger can perform all sorts of crazy maneuvers and stunts, basically very risky moves, and because of that he will be rewarded by the Game Master with more grit points to perform more special attacks. And that makes the Gunslinger really powerful, so I highly recommend that you don't use this optional rule, or that you give grit points in a very controlled manner, maybe just one or two grit points per day, because otherwise the Gunslinger is going to become just too powerful in my opinion. I also recommend that you make bullets a bit more expensive, so the gunslinger doesn't go, I don't know, just shooting bullets all the time like there was no tomorrow, because this class really becomes very powerful. You have to be careful with it. Now, this is a really cool character class, probably my favorite one, because I'm a ninja fan. The ninja, here's an illustration, and I was really interested in seeing how Pathfinder would handle the ninja, because the funny thing about ninja is that a lot of people like ninja. They oh yeah, I love ninja, they're so cool. But a lot of people also have different concepts of what a ninja is. Some say, oh, they are stealthy assassins. Another, oh no, they are like they are just spies. Or oh, they are sorcerers. They are martial artists. They are warriors. They even say that they are peasants with weapons that had to become like that during guerrilla times in ancient Japan. So it's kind of like a lot of people have a lot of different ideas of what a ninja is, and Pathfinder handles the ninja as as an alternate class for the rogue class, and it works kind of like a mix of assassin, monk, and rogue. It's actually pretty cool. And you get a key pool, and you have all these amazing ninja tricks to use, fueled by the key pool, and a lot of them are pretty cool, like staples of the ninja in popular literature and animation, etc. So for example, you have the flurry of stars. You just throw a bunch of ninja stars at your enemy, and you have a lot of different bombs to use. You also have attacks that cause bleeding, and the shadow clone or kagebunshin that you have seen in so many video games and anime, that you create clones of the ninja, so the enemy attacks and it was a clone and misses the ninja. However, there is one ninja trick that I think was a bit underwhelming, the pressure points trick. And this is basically, well, a ninja with this trick can strike at an opponent's vital pressure points, causing weakness and intense pain. Whenever the ninja deals sneak attack damage, she also deals 1 point of strength or dexterity damage, decided by the ninja. Unlike normal ability damage, this damage can be healed by a difficulty class 15 heal check. Now, this is a bit underwhelming, because anyone who has has actually suffered a pressure point attack in real life is going to agree that just -1 strength or dexterity, that's ridiculous. Some pressure point attacks are going to cripple you for a few days, maybe even cause long-term damage. So I think this should be at the very least -2 strength or -2 dexterity at the same time as ability damage, and maybe a chance of paralyzation. At least that's how I handle it in my games, because I don't know, it just feels a bit underwhelming, that skill. You also have master tricks that are like more advanced versions of ninja tricks. So you have assassinate, blinding bomb, deadly shuriken, ghost step, invisible blade. You have all those cool tricks. The ninja actually becomes like perfectionist in invisibility at level 20. That's pretty awesome. Now let's talk about the samurai. The samurai is an alternate class of the cavalier class. And you have orders, and it works very similar to a cavalier. However, I really like the way the samurai is very tough, very resilient to damage, because for example, it has all these abilities like determined, resolute, unstoppable, and at level 20 you actually declare a challenge against a specific enemy, and no one else can kill you with melee attacks or ranged attacks. You can only die if your target attempts to kill you. So this basically means that if I'm a samurai and I challenge that guy over there, and I keep on moving, and you've already taken my hit points below 0, way below 0, I'm going to keep advancing until I finish that enemy. So, however, magic attacks do cause damage to this samurai when he uses this special ability. And this reminds me of a World War II story that I read a long time ago. There was this British soldier that went into a Japanese bunker, and the Japanese had a katana back in those days, and one of them actually chopped off the soldier's arm, the British soldier's arm, and the British soldier before dying he actually took the katana away from the Japanese soldier and started killing as many Japanese soldiers as he could inside the bunker. He killed, I don't remember if he killed 5 or 7 before he passed out and died because he bled out from the wound. But I think that's a great example of this last stand samurai ability, although in that case I guess it was used against the samurai, so well. And then you also have a lot of class archetypes for the different existing classes. The alchemist has some interesting discoveries such as the breath weapon bomb and the immolation bomb. But there are also some a couple of cool archetypes. The beast morph, which allows you to turn into a specific like a were-like creature, and the rage chemist, which will allow you to play a character similar to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, as you can see here. Now you have other archetypes. For the barbarian, you have new rage powers. There's even a rage power called Eater of Magic. Once per rage, when our barbarian fails a saving throw against a spell, supernatural ability, or spell-like ability, she can roll the saving throw against the effect. If she succeeds at the second saving throw, she is not affected by the spell, supernatural ability, or spell-like ability, and gains a number of temporary hit points equal to the effect's caster level. That's a pretty awesome ability. You're basically saving yourself from an enemy spell, and you're also feeding on that spell at the same time. The archetypes for the barbarian are the Armored Hulk, the Scarred Rager, the Sea Reaver. The Sea Reaver is kind of like a barbarian that specializes in I don't know, kind of like a pirate. You can hold your breath for a long time, and you're very skilled at fighting underwater as well. And the Titan Mauler, the True Primitive. The True Primitive is actually a pretty cool barbarian archetype because you use primitive weaponry like bone axes and stone daggers and such. But you have some abilities based on trophy fetish. That is, you add pieces of your enemy to that particular weapon, maybe teeth or claws or whatever, and it actually makes the weapon stronger. Now, when it comes to the bard, there are some interesting archetypes: the archaeologist, daredevil, the dervish dancer. This illustration is cool. It's a bard over here. Now for the Cavalier, you have new Cavalier orders, Order of the Blue Rose, Order of the Tome, Order of the Seal, and a few archetypes: the Beast Rider, the Emissary, the Honor Guard, the Musketeer, if you want to use the new firearms weapons rules. This is a cool class to archetype to choose. And then you have the Cleric, and the Cleric has some pretty good archetypes as well. You have the Crusader. If you want your Cleric to be a bit more martial inclined, here it is. You also have the Evangelist, the Merciful Healer if you want to focus more on healing. The Druid, I think the Druid archetypes are a bit, I don't know, they don't feel as special as the other archetypes in the book. You have the Ape Shaman and Bat Shaman. They basically allow you to transform into that particular beast, but they feel a bit too specific in my opinion. You also have the World Walker, but they're all very specific to a specific to the wilderness and a specific climate. Now, when it comes to the fighter, you have the Armor Master, the Brawler, the Dragoon. That's very Final Fantasy themed in my opinion. You even have a special attack where the Dragoon jumps from her horse and uses her spear against an enemy. So that reminds me of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children when Cid jumped over Bahamut in the movie. Now there is an archetype that again it feels too specific. This is the Gladiator, and the Gladiator basically specializes in performance combat. So you depend on a crowd seeing you fight and cheering you on. There's a whole set of rules in this book telling you about performance combat. But this Gladiator will basically only be very useful when you fight in a campaign, like an arena-based campaign with gladiators and such. So it's not for every campaign. I highly recommend that if you want to use the Gladiator, you should modify it so you can use it in a normal dungeon crawl or campaign. You also have a tower shield specialist in case you always like to use tower shields because they are quite cumbersome and have some penalties. The tower shield specialist will present an interesting way to, I don't know, make those penalties not as harsh as normally they would normally be. The gunslinger gets a very cool archetype, the gun tank. It's basically a gunslinger with heavy armor. That's pretty unstoppable. You also have the musket master, the mysterious stranger, the pistolero. I don't know how I'm going to call this archetype when I play my games. I never used it, but gunslinger in Spanish it's basically pistolero. So if you have the pistolero archetype, you're going to be like, oh, do you want to be a pistolero, and I don't know. Then you get the Inquisitor. You have new Inquisitions and a few archetypes like the Spellbreaker, the Witch Hunter. Just a couple of archetypes. I think they should have added a bit more. Oh no, that's 3 archetypes. The Iconoclast. And now you also have the Magus, and the Magus has new Magus Arcana. That's pretty cool. New powers to choose from in each level. And you also get a very cool archetype, the Kensai. A lot of you will remember the Kensai. The Kensai is basically a very lethal close combat fighter. He's not allowed to wear armor, and he specializes in just one type of weapon, maybe a two-handed sword or a katana, but he's capable of dealing maximum damage with each attack. So the Kensai has actually been one of my favorite character types. I played the Kensai in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in the PC game Baldur's Gate 2. It was pretty awesome. So if you want a character that is like sort of like I don't know, a very risky character that can kill enemies in a matter of in 2 or 3 rounds or maybe less, but at the same time puts himself at risk, the Kensai is pretty cool. You also have the Skirnir, the Myrmidar, the Soul Forger. And for the monk, you have a Flowing Monk, Maneuver Master, Martial Artist, a Master of Many Styles. And many of these archetypes have to do with the feats presented in this book, there are a lot of feats in this book that allow you to fight in different styles of combat. The classic kung fu styles like a tiger or the mantis, crane, all those different maneuvers and techniques focusing on dealing more damage or fighting more defensively. That's cool because sometimes when a party has different monks, sometimes they feel like all the same in a sense, but this way you have a way to have maybe a party composed of monks, and each monk is going to focus on a specific tactical aspect of combat. This illustration is pretty cool for a monk. You also have paladin archetypes like the Divine Hunter, the Imperial Knight, the Holy Gun, so you can use a gun or a firearm as a paladin. You have another paladin illustration. This is a pretty cool illustration because not many paladins are portrayed with a bow and arrow. You also get an archetype for the anti-paladin alternate class, which is the Knight of the Sepulchre, with abilities such as Touch of the Crypt, Cloak of the Crypt, Will of the Crypt, everything of the Crypt. And at the end you become an undying champion at level 20. You become an undead basically. You also get a Sacred Shield archetype for the Paladin, which basically treats your shield as your magic paladin weapon. It reminds me of Eric in the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Now you have the Ranger. This is one of the illustrations that I was telling you about that feels a bit off. It feels too stumpy in my opinion, like I don't know, you really can't tell if this is a human or maybe a half-elf, but it kind of looks a bit dwarvish. I don't know why. Maybe even a halfling. It's a very weird style of illustration in my opinion. Well, for the Ranger you have the Battle Scout archetype, the Deep Walker, the Falconer. The Falconer, sorry, that reminds me of that Saturday Night Live skit of the Falconer. The Trophy Hunter, the Warden, Wild Stalker. Now these archetypes are pretty cool, but again, they feel a bit too niche. They depend on a specific animal or a territory to work at their full potential. or at least that's what I think about them. Now the rogue gets new talents, and even you even get the option of choosing some ninja tricks for your rogue. And the archetypes are the bandit, chameleon, charlatan, driver, knife master, roof runner, survivalist. You get quite a few rogue archetypes. And the wizard. This looks pretty cool. This is one of the new archetypes of the wizard. You use basically shoot spells out of your rifle. This archetype is the spell slinger. You also have the siege mage and arcane bomber. The siege mage, again, is very specific for a type of campaign where you're going to be attacking castles and fortresses. Now, the chapter that has all those cool feats, because this is a Pathfinder book, you're going to get dozens and dozens of feats. All of them are combat based, but most of them are for the monk. There are a lot of monk style techniques and feats. They basically take most of the space dedicated to feats. So that's something that may actually discourage you from purchasing this book. How many monk feats do you want or do you need? Because almost all the chapter, there's just too many monk feats. I think that's cool, but I wonder if that should have been saved for another book called Oriental Combat or something. So this is one of those things that may actually make you love or hate the book. I actually love it because, as I was telling you, sometimes monks feel too same-ish when you have a party with 2 or 3 monks. Now, this other chapter describes more rules about firearms and weapons. Well, first of all, you have Eastern armor and weapons. Again, you have a very strong Eastern feel in this book. You also have some pretty cool Oriental weapons. A lot of them for the monk, again. All with special rules for tripping and all sorts of maneuvers. For disarming as well. Now, when it comes to the firearms rules, they are good, but they really become too powerful at times. Just too easy to connect and deal a lot of damage when you attack an opponent up close or at mid-range. And if you even add the advanced firearms, now that's for an entirely different campaign, because they are really powerful. You're going to be doing lots and lots of damage. I highly recommend that you make guns and ammunition really expensive in your world, because for a campaign, they're just going to break apart all the little balance there is. So, something to consider. There are some pretty cool guns. For example, the axe musket that you can use as an axe as well as a firearm. In general, I've seen that not many are too happy with the way firearms were handled in Pathfinder, because in campaign settings such as Pure Steam and I forget this name. Let me check it out really quickly. It's one of my favorite campaign settings, and I forget it. How could I? Let's see. Just that there are many things with a thunder as a name. Thunderscape, of course. So in Thunderscape and in Pure Steam, you get new firearms rules, so they don't become too powerful. They feel more like normal ranged weapons in those games. At least a lot of them feel like that. You also have rules for gladiator weapons, which are based on performance combat. And performance combat is basically a somewhat fiddly style of combat in which you start gaining bonuses if the crowd likes you. So it's very specific for an arena campaign. So for those of you that have that arena rules from one of the Dragon magazines, you can use it with this rule set. You also have the rules for primitive weaponry, Stone Age weaponry, and such. And rules for duels, and again, they feel a bit too fiddly for a normal campaign, because most duels in campaigns will be carried out with the normal Pathfinder combat rules. You have rules for siege engines. Once again, they're more like focused on campaigns that have to do with conquest and with sieges and attacking castles and such. And you have rules for vehicles. This is actually a very cool chapter and very detailed, telling you all the ways to move your vehicles and all the different situations that may arise when running an adventure with ships or carriages or even maybe steam powered vehicles. Especially if you play in the Thunderscape campaign setting, there's a lot of vehicles there. Now you also have variant rules, but a lot of things in this game, in this book, feel like variant rules or optional rules. And here you have armor as damage reduction, more rules on how to make cold shots if you want to attack the specific part of the enemy's body. You also have rules for piecemeal armor, and that's basically grabbing different parts and making a sort of like a composite armor of sorts. Maybe you want to take leather for your arms, and you want maybe wooden leggings or grips, and at the same time you want a chain with a breastplate or something. It's kind of like mixing and matching different materials to create a sort of armor that fits your style, because you will be able to play with different penalties when it comes to different skill checks, or the speed you are allowed to move according to the armor you are wearing, or maybe the arcane spell failure chance. So you will be able to customize how much armor bonus you will get, and try to minimize those penalties. It's a bit fiddly, a bit cumbersome, because some players just want to purchase an entire set of armor and that's it. But for those that are looking for extra customization, they are not just satisfied with what's presented on the equipment list, they can build their own armor, kind of like building your own computer, so kind of like that. Now you also get an alternate system for wounds and vigor, and this is basically an attempt to make the game slightly more gritty or believable, but it feels pretty much not the same, but it feels too cumbersome at the same time. At least for me, I'm more comfortable with the normal hit point system. Now you have a good list of spells, and some very interesting. For example, you have the fiery shuriken. You also have a lot of spells related to siege weaponry and firearms. So for example, you can create siege machines out of nothing to attack perhaps a fortress or whatever. Let me see if I can find the... Oh, here it is. Again, this illustration feels really too stumpy, or I don't know, like you could maybe think it's a halfling or a dwarf character. It's not, but it kind of gives that feeling. This spell is also pretty cool. It's actually, you summon like ghostly hands that will help you recharge your guns. Oh, sorry. And that's basically it. You also have an appendix for the new weapons and all that stuff. Well, let me tell you what I think about this book. I think this book is pretty good if you want more things for your monk, and if you are into I don't know, Asian themed things, like, because you have the ninja, the samurai, oriental weapons, oriental armor, all the monk feats that I was telling you about. There are many oriental themed things here, so if you're planning to play a campaign sort of like I don't know, anything Eastern or something has to do with the way of the warrior and such, and you're going to find it here. You may become a bit disappointed that you wanted more things for the fighter, because this is the Ultimate Combat. You would expect that there were supposed to be a lot of things for the fighter, but There are some things, but not as many as all the monk and ninja and samurai stuff. I actually highly recommend it because even though the gunslinger can become a bit too powerful, and the ninja needs a bit of tweaking in some abilities, in my opinion, but the samurai is pretty cool. I actually really recommend this book, especially if you like to have more options, more customization options, and you have a bunch of optional rules to play specific sort of campaigns. The only negative thing about this book is that sometimes it presents things that are too specific, like the duels and the performance combat, but it's a very good book overall. I highly recommend it. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.